So, hello and welcome. Alright, today we'll go through some news. So, first and foremost, the top two teams in the West, Explosion and Gladiators. Their both records are fantastic. 9-6-1 for Everett, 9-6-0 for Vegas. 4-5-1 in the last 10 for the Explosion, 7-3 for the Gladiators of Las Vegas. So, some fantastic records. And then now, on the other end, we're going to show you two terrible teams. They just happen to play their next game against each other. The next two do not. And then we have the Buffalo Bison. Tomorrow they're playing Columbus and Louisville in the next coming days. Buffalo, they have lost 11 games in a row. Yeah, let me show you here. They've lost 11 games in a row. And they only won the first two games of the season up here. 7-3 and against Kitchener and 3-1 against the Louisville Lions. And ever since then, loss. It's 4 right there. And you have shutout out there, so it's another loss. It's 5, 6, 7 losses there, all against Wichita. Break where they lose 8, 9, 10, and yesterday they lost to the Kitchener Kingsmen 3-2. That makes it 11 losses in a row. So it's bad, but it wasn't even worse. We head to Montana. The only got the win on opening day here. Just the one win. 3-2 loss. 4-3 loss against it. They swept in the Vegas series. Swept in this series. Back-to-back season series sweeps. And then another sweep, and today they're gonna play They're gonna play a game against Houston. I'll show this one tomorrow. That's in game on November 25th. In the game, I'll broadcast that tomorrow. So they are 1-12-2. They're the worst team in the SIHL by far. Let's take a look at players now. I want to talk about some of those. Alright. I'm going to use edit lines and... Actually, no, I don't want that. Never mind. Hold on a moment here. Alright. What I want this. This is what I want. Alright. So, our top players, Nikita Kucherov, 8 goals, 12 assists, 20 points in 13 games. Very solid stats. There's your player in the league. Most points. No, that's the other way around. And Zach Hyman for the Orlando Ocean. 5 goals, 14 assists, 19 points. Kyle Connor for the Everett Explosion. 14 goals, 4 assists, 18 points in 16 games. These are some solid numbers. Right about quite over a point per game. That is solid. 20 points in 13 games. Very good stats here. Then our goaltenders. Ville Husso. He is number 1. 11 games played, 8 wins, 2 losses, 1 overtime loss. Then we have Logan Thompson. 10 games, 7 wins, 2 losses, and a shutout. He does have a shutout on the season. We have Lucas Stahl after that for the Wichita Wild. Thompson played for the Everett Explosion. So he's playing for this season. We have 6 wins, 1 loss, 1 overtime loss, and one of his 6 wins was a shutout as well. Then you got Igor Shesterkin for the Gladiators of Las Vegas. 6 wins, 1 loss. That's 7 games. That's 7 games. So I think, yeah, he must have got kicked out of one. That's probably what happened. Alright. We're 5 minutes, probably gonna go. That's where we're at for time. Alright, now we're gonna be on to just some team situation we're gonna go through. And I'll just go through them and then quick overview. Then if I see one that's important, I'll stop it. So starting in Atlantic City right now, as far as the schedule goes, they got a back-to-back against Toronto upcoming. Going off the 5-4 win against the Hartford Heroes, and then a two-game sweep over the Everett Explosion. So, and then we'll play two-game series against Toronto. Then next week they're going to play a 3-game series against your Atlanta Freight Train. Really mine. Speaking of Atlanta, we're going to my team. So right now, we've got a game against, they got a back-to-back. First in New Orleans, take on the Crusaders, and they're heading northeast to play the Augusta Ambassadors at Battle of Georgia. 6-6-1, 6-5-1. Let's go Atlanta. And then they're going to get a break before they can start a 3-game series against the Atlantic City Admirals, and we have another break, and then they'll start a 3-game series against the Washington Generals. So we move on to the Alaska Aces. Portland Pilots, they got a 2-game series against them. 5-7-1 for Portland, 8-5-1 for Alaska, so Aces are pretty good in the standings right now, which will end that. That's how we'll end this episode. I feel like I need to do these more often. Coming off 5-3 win a couple days ago against the Everett Explosion, and before that they had a 3-game series, and they lost the series. 2 games, still 1 win for the Houston Honey Badgers. We'll get to them. So, but overall, they have a better record. Now we move on to Augusta. Masters, they're gonna have a date with the Atlanta Freight Train, as I said, but they're coming, and then they're gonna play Miami, and then the two-game series against the New Orleans Crusaders. Okay. They're 6-6-1 right now, coming off 3-1 loss and then a 3-2 shootout win over Washington. Now we're on to the Baltimore Blast. What the heck, I think I might show them. Blast, they're on the other side of the country right now in a 3-game series against the Victoria Vikings. So 2-1 loss a few days ago. Today's matchup will be game 2 of it. 7-7-1 record for Baltimore, 8-3-3 record for Victoria. Cool thing about Baltimore, they have a cannon. So I cannot. One team I have kind of neglected in terms of showing. So I'm sorry about that. Now we're on to the Buffalo Bison we're just going to move on because I've already talked about them. And we're on to the Charlotte Tornadoes. So for the Tornadoes, it's been interesting. They have had to deal with... Yeah, it's just... They didn't play very many series. It's the only series they had. 2-game back-to-back series against the Crusaders, which it was 1 game apiece. And season series, they're losing 3-1. Right, no. Oh. 3-2. They're losing 3-2 in the season series. So But they came off a 9-6 crazy game against the Orlando Ocean a few days ago, and today they're going to take on Washington Generals in Washington before heading back to Florida to play the Ocean once more. We move on to the Columbus Chill. A 3-0 big shutout win for the Chill against the Miami Mavericks a couple days ago, and today they're taking on the Quebec City Royals. Tomorrow they're going to take on the struggling Buffalo Bison. We move to Everett. So for the Everett Explosion, we have them. There's right now a 3-game series not season series, a 3-game series sweep over the Montana Magic, which they're doing terrible, as you can see the record, and they came out with a 5-3 loss against Alaska Aces. They got back-to-back against the Gladiators, both in Las Vegas, and then they head up to Portland to take on the Pilots 2 games in a row, although they are spread apart. Move on to the Hamilton Sharpshooters, 7-7, so they're even right now. 4-2 win against Rochester a couple days ago after two-game series against the Atlantic City Admirals, which they were swept. Move on to the Hartford Heroes. Coming off 5-4 loss against the Atlantic City Admirals, and then, which I showed that game. Oh, that was an awesome game. That was an awesome game. It was really close. It's on YouTube. But right now they got a 2-game series against the New York Ramblers, who are 7-5. They're 5-7-1, so they do have a losing record. And then playing a 2-game series against the miserable Buffalo Bison. I'd like to see that record improve because it's awful. Now into Houston real quick. We're going to start speeding through these because So the Honey Badgers coming off a 5-1 win a couple days ago against the Montana Magic. They have a 2-game back-to-back to close out the 3-game series against them. And last week they played a 3-game series against the Alaska Aces, which they won 2-1. And next week they got a 3-game series against the Baltimore Blast. As we move down to the Kitchener Kingsmen, they have just got a 3-2 win over the Buffalo Bison. 4-2 won a couple days ago over the Quebec City Royals. And then last week they got some wins and 1 loss to Quebec. But they got wins against a couple different teams. Buffalo again, and then 2 wins last week against the Saginaw Silver Patriots. Alright, so now we're going to move on to the Louisville Lions. So for them, we have a 3-0 shutout loss to the Columbus Chill. So big disappointment there. And 3-1 loss before that to the Kitchener Kingsmen. So today they're gonna make a comeback against the Saginaw Silver Patriots. And then next week they've got Quebec, Saginaw, and Buffalo. So whole host of teams next week for Louisville. Now we move to the Gladiators, who are in really good shape right now. The record's 9-6 overall, coming out with 4-3 winning earlier this week against the Portland Pilots. And then a 4-3 overtime win before that in this 3-game series, but they did lose the first game of the series. Before that, they played a series against Alaska where they won 2 of the 4 games. Right? One of them being a 4-3 OT win. And today they kick off a doubleheader back-to-back between the Explosion and Las Vegas. So that's 2-game series against the Explosion this week. And then we got this next week they got a lone game against the Toronto Titans in Toronto before they head to New York to take the Ramblers on for a 2-game series. And then the week after that they got the Houston Honey Badgers. Then we move on to the Miami Mavericks. Alright. For the Mavericks, I'm going to go real quick over this since, time. So the Mavericks, it's a very solid record. They're one of the best teams in the East by far, 9-2-1. Just fantastic. Nobody's to 10 wins yet, so 9 is the most wins anybody has. But they've only played 11 games, so 12 games. Yeah. So, we have a 3-1 win earlier this week to the Augusta Ambassadors. For the in 3 games against 3 different teams. And tomorrow they got a game against the New Orleans Crusaders. They got another game against Augusta in a couple days. So. And then next we have the Montana Magic. Yeah, it's been a struggle. Two back-to-back series sweeps. And they're 3 in a row. It's not looking good. A 5-1 loss against Houston, they've got to improve. I'm not going to go much deeper into them because I already talked about them. Now we got the New Orleans Crusaders. Got a game today against the Atlanta Freight Train. Let's go Atlanta. But it could go either way. I mean, look at the stats. Just look at them. Look at the records. They're the exact same. But they did come off a 3-2 shootout loss to the Washington Generals a couple of days ago. And then 2-1 loss against the Washington Generals. 2-1 loss there. And 2-game series against the Charlotte Tornadoes. They won the second of the 2 games. Tomorrow they got Miami, the Mavericks, before they get a break, and we'll move on to the Ramblers. So for the New York Ramblers, they got the 2-game series against Hartford today and tomorrow. And they're coming off a big break here. 1, 2, 3, 4 days off. And they got they played a 2-game series against the Rochester Roadrunners. The other New York-based team in the SIHL. Back-to-back wins there. Then they did lose their last game 2-1 against the Toronto Titans. Next week, a 2-game series against the Gladiators. We'll see how they turn out. Alright, and we're moving on to the Miami Mavericks real quick. So, the Orlando Ocean, I am sorry. We're moving to the Orlando Ocean. So for the Ocean, they've got a huge 9-6 win against the Charlotte Tornadoes, a wild game. And a 6-2 loss, winning the first a 2-1 win against Atlanta, then they lost them 6-2. And then tomorrow they got a date with the Charlotte Tornadoes. Today's the Battle of Florida. I'm not going to win any of that, but it's the games. Let's skip a team. Nope. Now we're on to the Portland Pilots, coming off a 4-3 loss a couple days ago against the Las Vegas Gladiators. And then, as part of a 3-game series, they played them twice last week. 3-2 win in Game 1, 4-3 overtime loss. So they got points in 2 of the 3 games, but today they start a 2-game back-to-back series against the Alaska Aces today and tomorrow. I think tomorrow I'll cover this one. Then, a couple days they start a series with a 2-day break in between the 2 games against the Everett Explosion. So, some local battles. They're not far away from each other. Portland and Everett, which is right above Seattle. They're not far away from each other, and then after that, they got a 2-game series against the Victoria Vikings. But looking a bit far into the future. Not really, but a little. Now to the Quebec City Royals. One of the most unique teams. They're one of the more unique cities for a hockey team, but probably one of the most wanted. It's been a bit of a struggle. I know their record's good, but they're recent. Out of the last 5 games, they've only won 1. Well, they had a really good start. They did lose their first game 1-0, but back-to-back wins here. They won another game next week. 4-game win streak. Now down to 6. Game 7, 8, and then they crashed. And then they'll lose their next 3 games in a row. So today, got a game against Columbus Joe. Tomorrow they got a game against the Wichita Wild. That will be a tough one. I think I'm kind of making up my schedule as I'm doing this. So I think I'll do Alaska, Portland, right here on this day, and then I'll cover Game 2 of this series, the Wild and the Quebec City Royals. Then after that, they got a long game against the Louisville Lions. Now the Rochester Roadrunners. And for the Roadrunners, so we'll start making these news videos longer, by the way, so I can cover more stuff. So, just going through everybody's schedule, like upcoming. So the Rochester Roadrunners. I think I skipped Hamilton. I am sorry. I skipped Hamilton. So for the Sharpshooters. So they got the 1 win against the Rochester Roadrunners. Before that, 2-game loss to the Atlantic City Admirals. And that's all I need. Now to the Roadrunners. So, yeah, they're on the other side of the Hamilton series. They've lost game 1. They're all in Hamilton. So, they lost game 1. But they still got 2 games against them. Next week, they got the Generals and the Miami Mavericks on a back-to-back. So, that'll be interesting. And then after that, they got a day break, and then they got the New Orleans Crusaders. The next series they got is a couple weeks from now, where they got to play a 2-game series against Hartford, the Hartford Heroes. Now we move to the Saginaw Silver Patriots. So for Saginaw, we got a 5-1 win yesterday against the Wichita Wild, which that's a rare loss for them. They don't lose many games, So, yeah, back-to-back wins here, a 6-0 win. So they've done 11 goals in their last 2 games. They are a hefty team when it comes to scoring right now. Today they're on the road against Louisville. Tomorrow they're back at home against the Kitchener Kingsmen. Next week, Louisville again, this time at home in Saginaw, Michigan. Then they'll head to Columbus the next day to play the Chill in the Frozen Barn, which is where the name of the arena. What's the name of the game for the arena? Then the Toronto Titans 2-game series against the Admirals. So they're on the other side of it. And they're coming off, they won 2 of their last 3 games. The first one being a 4-2 win in the 2-game series against the Chill. Then they won a 2-1 win after losing 4-2 in the second game. They won 2-1 at the beginning of the week against the New York Ramblers. And then next week they got a long game with Vegas before back-to-back series, although a week in between these 2 series. First, again, 2-game back-to-back against Hamilton, both at home, then a 2-game back-to-back at home against the Admirals of Atlantic City. And the Victoria Vikings, we're getting close to the finish line of us. So we got the Baltimore Blast, and currently in a 3-game series with them. They won game 1 a couple days ago, 2-1, before winning only one of the 3 games in a series against the Wild, and before that they got 4-3. They won 2 of the 3 games in a 3-game series against the Everett Explosion. So yeah. Next week, looking up, they got a game against Alaska and a game against Portland, a 2-game series against Portland, and then they'll head back to Alaska to play a 3-game series only in Alaska. So, yeah, it's on the schedule for them. And now the final team, the Wichita Wild. So for the Wild, the final 2 teams, I should say, still have 2 more. So they're off today, but tomorrow they got a game against the Quebec City Royals. It seems like everyone's playing today, except for them. Obviously, one other team isn't playing. Can't remember. Maybe they're next. I just don't remember. But I feel like a lot of teams are playing today. Which I can't cover anything because I'll be busy today, so sorry about that. So 5-1 win loss yesterday against the Saginaw Silver Patriots. That's a rare loss for them. They don't lose too much, especially it's a big loss. Last time I lost anything of that was way back here. So they won 3 of the last 5 games. Just this loss against Saginaw, and the loss in the 3-game series last week they played against the Victoria Vikings. They did win the first 2 games of that series 3-2. Tomorrow they got the Quebec City Royals in Quebec. So it should be a close one, and it's actually going to be the first of a 2-game series as they play them down again the next day too. I think I'll cover that, and then I'll cover Alaska and Portland, then I'll cover the 2nd game of that series. And next week they're off most of the week, and then they got back-to-backs against first on the road against the Chill, then a 2-game series on the road against Kitchener before they head to Buffalo to play a 2-game series against the Bison. Final team, the Washington Generals. And for the Generals, right now, today they got a lone matchup against the Charlotte Tornadoes. Yesterday they had a 3-2 shootout win against, a couple days ago, I'll just say that. They had a 3-2 win in a shootout against the Admirals Crusaders. That name just left me for some reason. And they got a 3-2 shootout loss in the game previously against the Augusta Ambassadors. And finally, I want to look at the stat. 6 overtime points. Overtime loss here. Overtime loss here. An overtime loss here. You get the point. I wouldn't be surprised if they're like a wildcard team, or half the reason they get them because they have so many OT losses. Alright, that's it for this. Alright, and the final bit of this segment. Final bit of this episode of SIHL News. Which makes this more often, like 2 times a week. So just once every week and a half. Alright. So next thing I wanted to go over was the standings. That's going to be the final thing I go over in this much lengthier episode. Alright, so for, so the South, we're going to go by division. Starting with the South, we'll do South, North, Central, and then the Mountain Division. So the South Division, Miami's on top. 9 wins, 2 losses, and no OT loss in their 12 games. Generals, yeah, there's a vast difference. There's a big gap. It's a very good division overall, though. Look at this. 6, their records are all the same. 13, 13, 1. They all have 13 points right now. I know it's super early in the season, but yeah. All 4 of these teams have 13 points. Some teams are landing at the bottom with 11. Their record's not even that bad. They're 5, 7, and 1. And then we're going to go to the North Division. Wait. Okay, we'll do Central and the Mountain. So Atlanta stays on top of the North. 9 wins, 2 losses, 1 overtime loss. Toronto's right behind them. 7 wins, 6 losses, and 1 OT loss. So they've played more games. So that's why it's pretty much whoever has the most wins. They've played more games than everybody else. Oh, except Baltimore, which they're 7-7-1. So they're like 50% point percentage. And then we move to the rest of these teams. As far as this goes, Rochester, and this is a pretty good division. That's really your only bad team, Rochester. That's the really only bad team. Then we move to the Central. Well, Rochester's on top. 9 wins, 4 losses, 1 overtime loss. And the Kingsmen have the exact same record except without that OT loss, so they're just 9-4. They got 18 points in 13 games. So, yeah. So these are 2 teams on top, and Quebec's right behind them, 3. So this would be a good first round matchup. Quebec and Wichita, or so then Saginaw, and maybe, I don't know. And Kitchener. There's gonna be some fun matchups, or maybe Columbus joins in. Or Louisville, if these guys can step it up, and then you got Buffalo, bottom. Finally, we move to the Mountain Division. So Everett's on top, 9-1-6, lost to 1 overtime loss. And it's them in Vegas, pretty much, and everyone else. Alaska, I guess, a little, and then everything else it's just downhill, pretty much. Because Portland, they're not great. Houston's okay. Yeah, Montana's Montana. So top East in the West, and top in the entire league. Wichita, they're the best in the West, 9-4-1, and then Atlantic City is the best in the East. Entire league, Atlantic City is the best team in the league right now. Alright, thank you for tuning in. So that concludes this one. I'm Thomas Rest, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.